Hey, welcome to Hack and Build. Today I'm going to show you how you can turn your table saw into a router using one of these inexpensive molding head cutters. Like a router, which has bits to cut different profiles, a molding head cutter has these knives which can be swapped out to get a variety of different profiles. Unlike a router, these bits or knives are easy enough to customize in a home workshop with basic tools, so you can create a wide variety of custom shapes if the factory-made knives don't meet your requirements. We'll take a look at how I sharpen my knives up to get a nice smooth cut and how I set the work up on my table saw. Let's get started. Here are the two different kinds of cutters I have. They're both made by Craftsman and I picked them up on eBay for around $20 each. The main difference is that one supports 3 blades and the other supports 1 blade. Now I've actually gotten better results with this single blade cutter. I experienced some wavy cutting with this one, and my guess is just because I either didn't have the blades completely lined up or maybe the cutter head was a little bit off balance when I mounted it in the table saw. Nonetheless, I'm pretty happy with the kinds of results that I'm getting with this one. And it also comes with a larger selection of these cutters, and you can combine them to get a variety of different kinds of trim. Let's take a peek inside the manual and see what kinds of things it recommends. Here's some suggestions for molding, more trim over here, and showing you that you can use the bevel on your table saw to achieve a different angle. Some suggestions for panel doors and drawers, crown molding, and more trim and railings. Here's a little catalog page showing the different kinds of cutters that you can get. And here's an important thing, refitting your cutter. So having a nice sharp cutter is what's going to give you good results. And if you look at the condition that they come when you get one of these used sets, they've often got crud on them and they're not very sharp. So you do need to sharpen them up. Here's how I sharpen my blades. I just use a whetstone to do that, and I keep them in this little container. It's pretty convenient, and that's it. Usually just use the 600 stone. Get some water on the top, rub this back and forth along the stone. I'm just going to start taking off that and polishing it up. Now this edge here is getting polished up, but it's still a little low here in the middle, so I'm going to keep going. And this is the final results of one that I consider to be finished. Once you've got them nice and polished up, you get pretty good results. Here's a chunk of trim that I made with the 3-flute cutter. This is just a test piece, but I'm pretty happy with the results I got here. I also used that same cutter to match a piece of railing. That's what I got here. And I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. The other thing I wanted to touch on was making your own cutter. So if you can't combine what's here out of the box to get the profile that you need, you can take an existing blade and grind it down to get what you need. So here's one that I modified to get a particular curve, and I just used my angle grinder to grind it down, and then I followed the same procedure for sharpening it. Now once you have some sharp blades, you're ready to set your saw up for cutting, but you're going to need a few things first. For one, you're going to need a zero clearance insert plate. You're going to need a set of feather boards, and you're also going to need some push blocks. Now unlike making a zero clearance insert for your data stack, you're going to need to cut this hole out with something else. And to get the proper size, what you can do is use a pair of dividers, and you just measure from the center of the cutter to the farthest end of the blade. Once you've done that, you just plot a circle. And then based on the exposure that you need from the tip of the blade, you plot your distance across here, and then that's the length of the hole you need. Also, before you put the cutter into your saw, it's a good idea to install the blade, make sure it's good and tight, and make sure it's going the correct way. And it rotates this way, so you want to make sure the face is in the correct direction, and there's markings on the cutter itself to show you how to do that. Now once you've got your plate ready to go, I recommend just rotating the blade just to make sure that it doesn't contact the plate, because this will crack and splinter if the blade hits it. Also, if you have leveling screws here, you can use those to adjust it and make sure it's nice and level, because it will affect the cut if it's not level. Now we can go ahead and set up our fence. And I'm just going to use this piece of 2x4 here. Probably won't get the best results with this, but we'll see how it goes. Then I'll grab my feather board. And how I set these up is just push just against the fence, and then I just get this good and tight. Actually, I put it about right before the blade here. And just tighten this down. You want it good and tight so that it holds the piece of wood real solid in there. I'm going to plug my saw back in. Here I'm cutting at about 3/4 of my final depth. The cut's a little rough, so I'll raise the blade and we'll see how the final pass looks. This piece of wood is about 2.5 inches wide. The owner's manual states you shouldn't run anything less than 4 inches wide, so I'd suggest using a wider board and ripping it down afterwards just to be on the safe side. Okay, not too much better than the initial pass. Now I'm going to cut the other side at full depth. So this cut came out a little bit better. Actually, it looks pretty darn good. There's not too many nicks on this side, and the profile is nice and symmetrical. It really has a lot to do with the wood. There's, a lot of knots in this, and this stuff just isn't high quality. This is select pine, and there's no noticeable defects here. And this piece was made from 8/4 pine. Pretty nice results, I think. It should go without saying that the table saw is one of the most dangerous tools in the workshop when used improperly. I feel like I'm working safely with the techniques I've presented here, but I'm just a hobbyist with no formal training, so take what I say with a grain of salt, read the owner's manual, and do your research before jumping right into a project using one of these molding head cutters. If you didn't catch all that, you can check the description for a link to the owner's manual. But that's how I use my molding head cutter. I'd be interested in hearing any tips or suggestions that you might have, or if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. As always, subscribe for more hacks and builds. See you next time. Cheers.